So I was a volunteer gardener in Regent's Park, living in a one-bedroom flat until about 2 years ago when I decided I want to live in Scotland. And I came here after having seen many houses, and I just thought, this is good. There are lots of old trees. I could see the lines of the garden. I could see the barn. I could see a potential pergola with all the pillars. There were different levels. And I was so enamored of the place, I didn't look at the field next door where there were lots of boulders, and that should have told me something. And I got here, and the first thing I tried to do was put a bird table in the ground, and I put a fork in the grass, so-called, and it clunked. And I thought, oh, that's unusual. That's unfortunate. So I moved the fork, and it clunked again. Well, you can guess. I realised there were stones everywhere under the grass, and I went into a kind of depression, I think, because I thought, how on earth am I going to make a garden here if it's all rock? And then I had a second wind because I realised that this area here is a kind of courtyard, and it's closed in on 3 sides, and it can get quite warm here. I began to think, okay, I can do something in here. And then the next setback came when I realised that the ground was all hardcore, that the builders had deliberately put lots of hardcore here. There were no flowers here at all. There was nothing. And a friend and I dug out some holes in the ground to put in some climbing roses. And then, of course, I needed soil to put in the hole. And I Googled mulch and topsoil, and various companies came up, but the one that caught my eye was Caledonian Horticulture, because there's a lot about sustainability, and I thought, well, this is quite visionary, and this is, I want to support this, I want to be part of it in a very modest way. So I got my first delivery, and I put the soil and the mulch and the Kelpie in the holes, and I planted my roses. And by this time, the summer was going on, and I had back problems, and I didn't know what to do, really, because it was all too much for me. And I thought, well, I could get tubs. I happened to be at a local agricultural distribution place, and they had all these whiskey barrels, quite reasonably priced as well. And I thought, okay, I'll get loads of these, I'll plant them up, and it's a quick win. It's not permanent gardening. It's not what I wanted to do, but given the timing of the year and the pressure to get things in the ground, it seemed a good solution. So that's why we've got all these tubs along here and down this wall here, and these are all hydrangea, and one of them is limelight, which I used to grow in Regent's Park, which I really like. I'm getting to know the soil. That's something about gardening, I think. You get to know your garden. So up the top, it's clay and it's wet. Down the bottom, it's more sandy. But the story is 6 inches of topsoil, and then there are big stones, and then there's clay, and it's the same everywhere. And there are some massive stones that needed a crowbar to get out. And I'm still doing this. And I've been learning to moderate my ambitions. So it's really, what can I do in the time that I have before it's too late to plant anything? And each time I've dug a hole, I've had an order from Caledonian Horticulture. They've been here. You've been here several times. In fact, I think I returned something like 15 bags the other day, and that's not all of them. My latest project is a herbaceous border down the side, behind the hedge. I'm not sure how this will work, but the sun, as you can see, is coming from the south, so I think it's going to be sunny all day, despite the hedge. And I'm putting in my favourite old-fashioned roses. And I put in some fruit trees, and that's when the next disaster happened. That the deer, which I particularly like and look beautiful in the field in the morning, appeared in my garden and began eating my little plum and damson and apple trees, which is horrifying. So I have put brash round the trees, and it looks like wigwams. I was quite pleased with that idea, and I later discovered that's what the Deer Association suggests on their website. If you can't put a fence in, put brash around the trees and it protects them a bit. I'm going to try and get the border down there in shape with I've got lots of herbaceous plants which I buy too many and then can't put them anywhere. I'm going to try and put some euphorbia in here, which I think the acid green will look quite good, and it's quite dry in the stones. Down the bottom of the garden, there was what was called the children's vegetable bed, and that was a laugh and a half because it was full of rubbish and a lot of mint, and there was no soil. And again, this story of the stones. So I dug that out, And last year I used it as what I call my children's garden with sorts of seeds. And this year I'm trying to grow raspberries and gooseberries, and I'll do more seeds because I'm quite keen on growing annuals like cosmos and things like that. If I can get the bed around the corner sorted, that will be nice, even if it's quite rough. And then in the future, I'm going to try and extend this garden here out because I don't need all this space for cars. I don't want a car park. But this is going to be heavy work. And there's a tree to come down, and I want to do something with the lower garden, but that's very much in the distance. So here it is. It's not quite Gertrude Jekyll, but it is a lovely place, and it is nice sitting out in the evening with a beer, and the peacock comes along a bit like a dog and sits with me. So it's all very peaceful. And thank you for coming.